Welcome to After Hours with Jimmy Thistle. Welcome back, guys. Hope you've had a good week and you enjoyed last week's episodes. Today we've got Ryan. Rock Bottom with Ryan is his handle and his podcast on the old Instagram and Spotify, Apple, etc. I've been listening to Ryan. Well, he's only been going a couple of months, but he seems to be hammering out the episodes like left, right, and centre. I think he's slowed it now down to one a week. But yeah, he's got some great content on there. Some really kind of dark stories, but heartwarming at the same time because I've not listened to them all yet, but all of the stories that I've listened to, there is success and hope at the end of, the dark days and the debauchery. So, yeah, it's definitely worth checking out. It's called Rock Bottom with Ryan. So Ryan came from, a bit of a dysfunctional, broken home, which definitely caused some social issues, for him growing up. He talks about a time with his mum and his stepfather or mum's partner, where he was just kind of I guess kind of segregated from the rest of the family down in the basement, which sounds kind of almost like some kind of true crime kind of documentary or something. So for him to then kind of move to his father, but then have different rules and whatnot. It was kind of like, well, where do I stand as a kind of teenager? So he started smoking weed, but didn't really start drinking until about 18, and then through uni, it kind of it did ramp up a bit. He became involved in a fraternity, and I guess from media and films and stuff, we just know that as kind of drinking games, parties, trying to outdo each other and the frat bro kind of mentality. So yeah, so he was involved in a lot of that, but then he does go on to say that when he got into living on his own, like a lot of people, it's that freedom, isn't it? And if you've not got a great kind of grasp on where you want to be and is drinking going to hold you back, then you just kind of go for it. I mean, the similarities to my story are kind of, pretty prevalent. So, it's a great episode, great conversation. I've listened to Ryan's story, and I don't know if we kind of covered every single thing in his story. He does talking, and I hope he doesn't mind me saying this, in some of his own episodes about some kind of child sexual abuse going on when he was younger. So a lot of these traumas kind of do affect you, and I mean, as I say, it's not mentioned in this episode, but I think that is possibly something that and I hope he doesn't mind me saying it because I know it's out there on his own Instagram, but I think that's obviously something that's really kind of was ingrained in him, and he was looking for escape. He was kind of in and out of codependent relationships, and I think from his words, he became dependent on alcohol at age 28, which is such a young age to kind of, whether he knew that then or if he worked that out later on. I mean, I think he had a fair idea that he was on a turbulent path at that age. So yeah, it's a good listen. There are some trigger warnings in there, from here to there. So just take care when listening, as always. But yeah, check Ryan's pages out. It'll all be in the show notes. But also, just listen for the similarities and not the differences, guys. I will see you at the end. Cheers. Bye bye. Ryan, Rock Bottom with Ryan. Welcome to After Hours, Jimmy Thistle, mate. How are you today?
I'm doing really well. Thanks, Jimmy, for having me on.
Good. Yeah. You're welcome, mate. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on. Whereabouts? You're in the US, yeah. Whereabouts are you?
I'm over in the state of Washington, Northwest.
Ah, cool. Okay. So, I mean, I'm going to be completely kind of ignorant and just say, well, I know Seattle, so are you anywhere near to Seattle? I know Washington's
I'm
pretty
about
big.
5.5 hour drive from Seattle.
Okay. Have you heard of Erica C. Barnett?
I have not, no.
So, a guy, there's a guy, Tom McLeod, that was on the podcast a few weeks ago. It's not been released yet, but anyway, he told me about a book called Dry by Augustine Burroughs, and then from that one, I got then led on to Erica C. Barnett. Sorry, she's from Texas. I think she's from Austin, but she moved up like late '90s, early noughties to Seattle. She's a journalist up there, and her story about her recovery and like just the debauchery and all that, like I've not finished it yet, but it's an amazing book, so I'll definitely I'll send you a link to that one. But yeah, that was just my little link to Seattle there in Washington
Uh,
State, so
no,
it's
I grew up, was born and raised in Seattle, so I know all about it. And
cool.
after I went to college over at Washington State University, I kind of fell in love with this area over here. And once I went into my adulthood and went through a rough divorce, I decided to move over here where I had some family. So,
Okay, I mean, yeah, it sounds it's always been on my kind of like my bucket list. I guess because growing up in the '90s, there was the grunge scene, Pearl Jam, like my all-time favorite band, and obviously Nirvana as well. So that kind of
yeah.
whole Washington State and Seattle kind of was deeply
Oh,
embedded in my youth. So yeah, yeah, and I like
oh, I have a
Starbucks.
picture in front of Kurt Cobain's house from a few years ago.
Oh, nice, nice. I mean, I
Yeah,
say
his
nice. It's
childhood home.
yeah. Is that
Yeah.
oh his childhood home, not the one where he, the one with the bit above the garage? No, no, no.
No, not that one. No.
Not that one. And we're getting off track, but it's always good to start the episodes without diving straight in. So, yeah, Ryan, tell us about your childhood then, and when you had your first drink. How was that growing up for you?
I would say my childhood was a little complicated.
Hmm.
My parents, they were together till I was about 7 years old, and they got divorced. And then my mother got full custody of me. But my
Hmm.
only memories of my parents together weren't very good ones. Individually, I have good memories of them together, spending time with my dad out in the yard and spending time with my mother. But together, they were very toxic, from what I remember.
Yeah.
And they ended up getting a divorce at age 7. I believe around the time my mother had a child with somebody else. So I think that played a huge role in that. And they were married 18 years, but I think the relationship was sort of on the outs the entire time, towards the end.
Yeah.
But that was kind of the nail in the coffin. So when they got divorced, my mother had custody of me, and she and I moved around a lot. She would start dating new men, and we'd move into their houses and move. We moved to Idaho and back a couple of times, and I changed schools every year. So my life for a long time until I was about 12 was very unsettled, and I would say around age 11 or 12 is where it got pretty complicated because my mother had moved into a boyfriend's house who was a very dysfunctional household.
Hmm.
And all the other households were pretty dysfunctional, but this one was the one that I think affected me the most, where I spent most of my time living in a basement of the house, and I wasn't really like welcome upstairs to associate with the rest of the family, my little sister and the boyfriend and all that. And it was just kind of, I think it impacted me socially quite a bit.
Mm.
When I'd go to school, I just was very quiet, had really bad anxiety, social anxiety. I would have to have teachers walk me out of the assemblies because I would be having panic attacks, and this was going on on a regular basis. So eventually, I communicated with my father, who I was very close with at the time. I'd only see him every weekend or every other weekend.
Mm.
I kind of told him what was going on, and he had no idea that I was staying at friends' houses all the time to avoid being at my own house at my mother's. And he decided, hey, you're turning 12 soon. I think legally you can decide where you want to live now. Why
Sure.
don't you move in with me before middle school starts? And I said, yeah, I love that idea. And I moved in with him, and he had a pretty stable relationship with his wife at the time, and I really liked her. I got along with him really well.
Hmm.
But I think a lot of that played had to do with the fact that I didn't see him very often. So maybe I didn't, know him as well as I thought. Was thought in some ways where I just thought the relationship's great. I see him on weekends. We play sports. We do this. So I'm excited to live with you. But
The
once
grass
I
is
moved
always
in with
greener
him,
type thing, isn't it? Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I loved him to death, but I was used to like having fun every time I saw him. And then once I moved in with him, it was like, I'm gonna give you structure that you didn't have at your mother's. So I got all
Mm,
these rules and these curfews and all these things I wasn't used to. So
yeah.
my response to that was rebel, rebel. And I, got into middle school. I think I started smoking marijuana around age 12,
Hmm.
and I started, I got good grades, and I was really good at sports, so I was like good at kind of making it seem like everything was all right, but I was, sneaking off with a lot of the wrong people, popping out my window at night and breaking rules, and I got arrested for shoplifting freshman year of high school, and
Hmm.
so it kind of carried on from that. So throughout high school, I kind of went back and forth with my dad as far as being rebellious. I thought he was going through his own share of problems as well, because his wife had cancer. It was a complicated household. I think he was traveling a lot more, and I was spending more time, just by myself at home with my
Yeah.
stepmother, and just I didn't really like, respect her authority a lot of the time. So I would just be sneaking out and hanging out with bad people and smoking marijuana. I didn't really get into drinking in high school. I in high school I only probably drank maybe 3 or 4 times total, and I was always the
Yeah.
designated driver.
I mean, like I've had a few kind of Americans and Canadians on the podcast, and I know you guys have I don't know about Canada. I think it's 18 there, but obviously with the US it's 21. So is it I mean, obviously you can swipe it from parents' liquor cabinets and all that, but is it more difficult to get it? I mean, like, sorry, how old are you, Ryan?
I'm 38.
38. So you're kind of, I mean, I'm 45, so there's a few years in between us, but we grew up in the kind of 90s or early noughties. So was it easy to get hold of alcohol? Obviously you're underage, at 14, 15, but was it still easier to get?
Yeah, it was. We always found a way. We had friends with older brothers. That was always an easy go-to.
Yeah.
And a couple of friends in high school had fake IDs, and they would go to specific mini marts where, um, like, the owner was just very careless, and they would
Yeah.
probably know that we're too young, but they would still sell it to us. And then a
Yeah.
lot of the time, you could always pay like a homeless guy or something an extra few dollars and say, "Hey, can you go buy us some 40 ounces and stuff?" So
Yeah.
there was always a way. But I'll
I mean, it
admit,
was the
when
same
I
the same
first,
over here. Sorry, we used to get like just I mean, it didn't even have to be homeless people, just older guys, like people my age. We'd go up to them and we'd give them like money and they'd go in and get it for us. Like there's no chance in hell. Not just because of what I'm doing now, but I think it's like the law would just come down tenfold on people that were caught, selling, buying liquor for a minor. It's just there's no
furnishing to
way.
minors, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. No, it's crazy, but obviously it was a different time then. But so you just decided to kind of smoke the weed rather than drink then, yeah.
Yeah, I just didn't really get the appeal to it. I mean, the first time I ever got drunk was a bad experience because I was drinking out of a bottle, and somebody, right when I was drinking out of a bottle, having my first ever buzz, somebody elbowed the bottle into my mouth and like popped my teeth out, blood everywhere, and that was my first like drinking experience.
Oh,
So I just
Jesus.
decided, all right, well, this isn't really that fun. So,
Yeah, that's enough to
I,
put you off for life. I mean, obviously we know it didn't, but that is. Did the person do it on purpose, or was it an accident, or?
it was a complete accident. They were playing some drinking game where you had to swing your arms and like slap something, and then I just happened to be taking a sip, and then oof, right into my face. So I spent the whole party on a chair holding a bloody lip, and I was
Yeah.
like, all right, I'm just gonna stick to the designated driving for a while.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Fair, sensible, sensible. And you know what? Like smoking weed, it's not really that. Yeah, I know there are people that have issues with that. I never really had an issue because I gave up when I was about 22 smoking weed, but I'd smoke it religiously. It was like day in, day out, and obviously
Yeah.
drive as well. So, there was that. But I think you've got more compos mentis around you. You're just a bit slower, but you're focused
Yeah.
on things a bit more. Anyway, yeah. So how did that kind of develop through your kind of teen years? And
Yeah. It just it I only drank, yeah, like 3 times until my senior year, and I think once I got to college, it was once I really broke out. Not just because it was college, but because I felt like in my dad's household, I felt even though I broke a lot of rules and still snuck out all the time and got away with stuff, I still
Mhm.
felt sheltered and like I had to lie and like tell stories all the time just to make up for what I was doing and where I was going. So when I got to college, I'm like, it's about 6 hours away from Seattle. And I was like, holy crap, I'm free. I can do whatever I want. Nobody can tell me what to do.
Yeah.
And literally the first night there, I got uh, some cute girl that was in my dorm invited me to a party. And I was like, well, I'm off to a good start here. I'm going to go out tonight. I'm excited.
Yeah, yeah. And you
And
were what, 18? 18 at this age,
yeah, I was
yeah?
about 18.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I got all excited. And I was just like, went out, had a great night, and had a great night all of her, and then like the whole first week before school started, because I was there a week early, I was already drinking every day, and then school started, and I toned it down a little bit, but I can get into the part where it escalates really bad if you want.
Yeah, no, I mean the thing is like over here we have a thing and I did college. I didn't do uni until I was in my 30s, but it was still the same. Like they have a thing called Freshers Week over here, which is like basically all the kids that are just starting uni, they're just fresh from their parents' house, they don't even really know how to cook anything other than pasta and beans. And then suddenly they're being thrown into these drinking games and drinking parties. Like the whole Freshers Week is like half price drinks or a pint a pound a pint, and all this kind of stuff. And I'm sure you guys have got a similar thing. And it baffles me now that, when kids they're so young and impressionable, and straight away the universities where they're going to get the education that's going to treat them for the rest of their life, and they're thrown in to get really, really bad habits. Obviously a lot of them,
Yeah,
they're fine, they have a few drinks and then they crack on with it. But like the majority of them just go hell for leather, and it's crazy.
yeah. They're like you're thrown into the wild basically, and you don't
Yeah.
have the skills to deal with all that freedom. And I know a lot of kids that were my age that were freshmen that dropped out first semester because of just drinking. And I was impressed that I never fully dropped out, but I definitely took me 5.5 years to graduate.
Hmm.
And I took, there was a time where I specifically took part-time credits so that I could, appease my drinking and still be able to drink without having too much on my plate.
So how did it, like, yeah, so the first year were you were going to classes, but you were just kind of, did you fall in with a crowd that was just kind of drinking, or was it solo drinking? How did that kind of work?
It was zero solo drinking. I
Mm,
didn't even try drinking alone until probably after college. But partying, it was all about social drinking because
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I felt like I was socially awkward in high school. Like I had a lot of friends and stuff, but I never really felt comfortable in my own skin. And
Yep.
then when I got the taste of alcohol in my mouth at age 18, I was like, wow, I'm actually kind of fun and outgoing and like crazy. I kind of like this. So first few weeks into college, I was living in a dorm. My roommate was kind of annoying me, and I started making a friendship with a fraternity guy at
Cool. Yeah.
one of my classes, and he invited me over to work on a project. And while I was over at his house, I just saw like girls walking around. I was big on chasing girls, obviously,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and I and a lot of the guys were coming up to me asking me like a lot about me. They seemed interested in getting to know me, and I was like, this is kind of cool. And I asked my buddy who invited me over, I was just asking more questions about what it's like being in a fraternity, what are all the benefits, the pros, the cons, and he kind of told me all about it. And I kind of said, okay, well, it's something I might be interested in. And then I came over a few days later to finish that project, and he said, hey, I talked to some of the guys here, and we are looking for some new members. If you're interested, we could pay your fee to get out of the dorm and you could move right in like this week if you want. And I'm like, you know what? I don't make uh, abrupt decisions very often. I'm going to take a
Mhm.
risk here. I'm going to do it. because I want to have a social life and I want to have fun in college.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I signed the card, and they brought a bunch of guys to my dorm, helped me move my stuff over, and day one when I moved in was the first day where it was like, all right, you're the new member. The older members want to come drink with you, and they got me completely hammered that night.
Yeah.
And woke up the next day more hungover than I've ever experienced, and went to class kind of still buzzed. And I remember I was having a good time in class, and I was, being flirty and talking to people. And like, this is kind of a cool life, And then I get to go
Mhm.
back to the fraternity tonight and do it again. That's cool. So that's where it really, really took off.
Yeah, and
Um,
I guess you feeling like you were saying, like the social anxiety. I think a lot of people have that going through high school, and you know, majority, I would say like 90% of the people I know and the people I've had in the podcast who started drinking around 14, 15.
yeah,
We're of course we're socially awkward at that age. That's kind of a
yeah,
given. And then
huge
if we're
transition.
using alcohol to kind of combat that and use it as a crutch, I was 40 before I started knowing how to socialize sober. It was insane. But
Yeah,
you're
I'm
obviously now
38. I'm just
feeling
learning.
sorry?
Like I said, I'm 38, and I feel like I'm just learning how to do
Yeah,
it.
exactly. It's like we've been living with this crutch our whole life, and it's like, whoa, it's kind of taking the
Yeah.
blinkers off, and we're like, what do we do now? And it's great, it's fun. I'm enjoying working it out and experiencing it. But then you're part of this whole fraternity. It's like you feel like you belong, and of course, you've now got this superpower where you're kind of going into college, some possibly a little bit still drunk from the night before, but you're having fun. You've got your buddies to back you up. Now, like I mean, the only my excuse my ignorance again. My only kind of experience of fraternities is from, I don't know, like possibly not the American Pie films, but that genre of films, where they're in the fraternities and they're doing all these kind of pledges and kind of forfeits and dares and all that kind of stuff. But so they said they were going to buy you out of the dorm, and then
Yeah.
is it free to live in the fraternity house, the frat house, or do you have to
Oh,
pay
no,
them?
it wasn't free, but they said that it was a lot cheaper than the dorm.
Yeah, yeah.
Basically, you just pay this large one time a semester fee, which includes all the food, all the living, and you live on this.
Wow.
And it was like half the price of a dorm. So I told my dad about it, and he's like, "Yeah, that's great. Save some money," because he was funding my college at the time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I was like, okay, let's do that. And it wasn't the same privacy you'd ever get at a dorm. Like you go into this big giant house with 30 guys,
Wow.
and for the new members, you sleep on this thing called a sleeping porch, where it's one big living room with a bunch of bunk beds,
Uh-huh.
and 30 guys on there. And there's, I would say more than half of us were drinking every night on a regular basis, and there's guys sleeping with girls in that room, and there's just all this commotion and no privacy, and that's just kind of the lifestyle at the time. And then you get like this little office room where you can do your studies and stuff, and I mean that's the only privacy you really get. So I would
Yeah,
go to my girlfriend at the time's sorority house all the time just to get a little quiet because
a
it was
little bit of
so.
quiet. Yeah, it
Yeah.
sounds absolutely chaotic, but don't get me wrong, it sounds like a lot of fun at the time as well. And yeah, so you like, how did that develop through your kind of college years? You said you kind of took you 5 years. Did you kind of take extra years or stay back, or how did that
Um,
work?
no, it just took me. I switched majors a couple of
Oh,
times.
right, okay.
I wanted to be a commentator, sports analyst,
Mm,
and sports writer as well. And I couldn't pass some of these classes in communications because of my typing skills. And so I ended up starting to take psychology classes and started getting credits a little bit more easily through that. So when I switched, it just took me a little longer, and I stopped taking as many credits because I was probably drinking and just being a little lazy. So it just
yeah.
took me an extra year and a half, I'd say. And I took some summer courses too. So I
Hmm.
didn't, so all I got was my bachelor's, but I didn't, get a master's or anything. It just took me that long because I
Yeah,
was
yeah,
just
yeah.
delaying
But
things. So,
yeah, and but I mean, you said it was probably a bit of drinking, but your drinking didn't really kind of go chaotic until after college, was it?
no, yeah. So in college, I would say I was just a very huge partier in college. I
Yeah, but who
always like
isn't?
wasn't like waking up and needing to drink or like
Yeah.
reliant on it, but I was partying every night. I would find every excuse during college to party. Oh, there's a game on. Let's go watch it and get drunk. Or hey, like come over and play some beer pong or some drinking games. And I would
Yeah.
smoke a ton of weed too, so that was
Yeah.
on top of that. And sometimes I would experiment with some recreational drugs and all that. But it really didn't get bad until, like you asked, after college, where I moved into my own apartment and had and lived alone for the first time ever.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where like I was like, okay, well I'm 22 and I've got all this free time on my hands. I didn't have a job yet. My grandmother was helping pay rent at first and sending me some money to
Mm-hmm.
stay afloat until I got a job. So I had all this time, and I lived next to this mini mart, a couple blocks from my new apartment, and I just walk over there or drive over there and I would pick up some beer. And that's when I started really drinking alone, is just kind of sipping out of boredom and kind of depression, because it's a lot of my friends were still in school, or they were,
Mm-hmm.
all my friends in college lived in different areas. Not all of them were from Seattle. So I was kind of in Seattle trying to reconnect with old high school buddies, but a lot of them had moved on too. So I just felt like a sense of loneliness. So
Mm-hmm.
I started buying beer, bringing it home, and that escalated into walking to bars and spending time at bars by myself,
Mm-hmm.
which that turned into just a lot of depression drinking. So there was a bar next to my house. I would go there. I would black out, and there was multiple times where the owner of the bar had to like walk me out and put me in a cab and send me a few blocks, down to my apartment. And it just started to get really out of control there. And that's where like I started to develop what I thought was a dependency, because I would wake up like with the shakes and
Yeah.
hungover and like really withdrawals. And that's where I realized, wow, I must really have a problem. But I tried to blame it on anxiety and thinking, that was before I had any education about what alcohol really did to your body.
Mm-hmm. And what would you say you're kind of, because I mean, it's, I'm listening to the similarities. Like when I first got my, well, I mean, I was still with housemates and things, but it was that whole sense of, right, I'm not living at my parents' house anymore. I'm growing up. I can go out and get myself alcohol. Because, growing up when you're younger, you're kind of doing it, and you're maybe staying at a friend's house because you don't want to come home smashed out your head to your parents' house or whatever. Although I did do that as well. But once you get your own apartment, you're like, right, I can go out, I can get wine, I can get beer. Nobody's stopping me. I've got, you know what I mean? I don't even need to show ID really because I'm legal age. So it's that whole sense of being grown up. And then like I used to love going to bars, and like if I finished my work or whatever and I'd wander home and none of my mates were about, I'd just go to a bar and I'd crack up conversation with these old barflies. In those days you could
Yeah,
smoke in bars as well, so it was like, like this is my life. This I love this, and it's kind of,
same here.
I just
So
I
fun.
love the whole vibe, and I didn't realize, I had no idea how dangerous it was, and I thought, you know what, like if I drink a lot, that's just me, that's who I am. I'm not causing any harm, I'm not causing any trouble at that point. What was your
Yeah.
drinking habits like at that point? Like how much were you drinking? Because you're saying potentially getting withdrawal at that age as well.
I know. That was the scary part, that my body was
Yeah.
starting to reject it. And I would spend like 3 or 4 days suffering. It was before I knew that drinking more would actually help. So I feel
Yeah.
very ignorant when it came to what it was doing to my body, because I would suffer through it and I'd be like, okay, in 3 days I'll be able to get out and go get some more alcohol and I'll be fine again. But I was probably drinking between 6 to 12 beers a night, plus
Hmm.
once it graduated to like hard alcohol, I was bringing in, I was buying half gallons of vodka. So I would say I could go through a half gallon every few days or a week or so, and then top it off with some beers. So I was drinking definitely enough. I'd say my BAC, I bought a breathalyzer just to track how
Wow.
drunk I was sometimes, because I
Now,
was curious.
I'm just trying to work it out. What's a gallon in liters? Because we're on the old metric thing over it. Although we use pints as well. In a pub, you can get a pint, but then everything else is in milliliters and liters. So a gallon, what's that in? Uh,
I don't know what it translates to. Do you guys say a fifth at all? Because
we
a
don't
fifth would
say a
be like,
fifth. So, like, my drinking was like a half bottle of vodka would be. It's like it's. I think it's, well, it's 500 milliliters, so it's like half a liter. Um,
yeah.
and I think that I should look it up. I think that equates to like a fifth. What is?
So like I think 2/5 makes a half gallon or something. I can't remember,
So
but
a fifth of
it's
vodka. So a fifth of vodka is a standard 750 ml bottle. Okay.
yeah,
So we have a bottle in the UK, but then you have a liter. So a bottle is like maybe a bottle of wine. That's a 750 ml bottle of vodka. But then you go up and you get a liter. So yeah. So a fifth,
yeah,
and then that's a fifth of a gallon, is it?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Right. Okay, I got you now. So you were drinking. Sorry, what a fifth?
I
Like.
would say about a average, yeah, a fifth every couple of days, but a
Yeah. Yeah.
lot of beer. That was before like I realized hard alcohol was so much better, but worse. And
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
drinking tons of. I'd buy 30 packs of this brand called Bush Light, which was the cheapest 30 pack you could buy at the time.
Yeah.
And I would just drink those constantly, and I would try to just call around to people to see who would drink with me because it seemed like everybody else in my life was more responsible, and I was just kind of living it up because my grandmother, God bless her heart, she lived to 105 years old and she spoiled the heck out of
Wow.
me. But she would send me money, and she didn't know that she was kind of fueling my habits by
Yeah.
making life easy on me.
Yeah.
And I, would, just try to avoid getting full-time jobs, and I would just be partying really hard, thinking, "Oh, I'm still young. I still got a lot of time to build a
Yeah. Yeah.
career." But yeah,
Yeah.
found out later that it became, obviously an issue and held me back quite a bit. So
Yeah. I
I,
think someone told me quite early on about the hair of the dog, so I kind of knew about, like, if I was feeling hungover or whatever, I would just go and meet my mates for like a pint early doors. Because, like, I lived up in Glasgow and Aberdeen, and there was a lot of those pubs were open from, like, well, I think a lot of them opened from about 10, but then there was ones in Aberdeen, they were open from 6 a.m. because
6
they
a.m.
had like the fishermen and the oil rig workers coming in, so they would go there. So, like, we were at college up in Aberdeen, and we just went to. We thought, wouldn't it be funny to go down and, like, there was a breakfast morning program called the Big Breakfast, and we were like, we'll go down there and we'll get a couple of pints in and we'll watch the Big Breakfast and we'll have breakfast in the pub, and then we go to
Yeah,
college. So it was like, it was just a bit of fun at
yeah,
that point, but it was
it
it
was.
was it was a kind of taster and a warm up for that, knowing what the hair of the dog was. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I would do that a lot. Like once it escalated to partying all night, like with
Mm.
when drugs came into the picture, I'd party all night, and then instead of doing a hair of the dog because I never went to sleep, my
Hmm.
friends and I would go to this bar that was open at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
and we'd start drinking and continue the party, and then finally around like 1 p.m. we'd be like, okay, time to go sleep all day.
Yeah. Well, that was it. When I lived in London, we lived like in quite a trendy part of the town in the East End, and it's called Shoreditch, and like we would have big, massive parties around at our house, and they would go on like the whole weekend. But what would happen is, we wouldn't have gone to sleep, and then it would get to kind of the, open the blinds and the sun streaming in. There was a little bar, kind of, it was like an American style diner, had the kind of booths and all that, and we'd go in there and we'd all order a breakfast, and the drink of the morning for everyone would be a Bloody Mary, because that would just waken you up, right? And then we'd all be fine, because obviously, as you know, there's other stuff involved, and we would just crack
Yeah.
on through the weekend, but then it would come around to Monday, and it was like, work.
Takes till Wednesday to feel normal.
Yeah, and I just hated work. That was the thing. It just always got in the way. Yeah. So you're kind of mid 20s now, and relationships, and how's work going? Are you working at this point, or?
Yeah, I started working at a technology related job
Hmm.
for a cell phone company and worked there for quite a few years. But like a lot of the people that I became friends with, uh, you know, partied at night too. So obviously, like if I'm drinking and partying, I'm gonna attract those kind of people, and those are the kind of people I'm gonna seek out.
Yeah.
So at work, I would start to pay attention to certain people that would go have drinks on their lunch break, and I'd be like, "Hey, let's go join for a beer." "Oh, what are you doing this weekend?" Let's, and it turned into that. So I started to incorporate my first like real full-time job into a place to meet people to go party with, and we started to have this whole social clique
Mm.
together, and we started to get kind of just all go out on weekends. We had a group of like 8 or 9 of us, and a lot of that involved drug use as well,
Hmm.
specifically cocaine. I don't know if that's that was kind of like the predominant drug that I used probably on top of alcohol to keep the nights go longer, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And
It's a weird makeup. I didn't really know about it until much later on. I mean, obviously I did do cocaine, but it was, see, the drugs for me through my 20s was mostly ecstasy, and then I wouldn't drink on that at all until it came to the come down, because then the weekend would go on, so we'd be drinking for the come down. But then I found out later that if you take coke with drink, it's like you can just drink all night. It's unbelievable. It's just madness. So yeah.
I know it keeps you like slightly sober so that you can justify drinking more.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. It's
and
crazy,
the
but it
nights just
sounds
get
like you
longer.
kind of did a lot of what I did. You know, seeking out the type of people that you knew wouldn't judge you. They'd be partying with you, and it sounds like you kind of stylized and modeled your kind of working life around your kind of social life as well. Which I know a lot of people that keep those completely separate. I never did. I would always go to work and start a new job, and I would seek out the people that I thought I'm going to hang out with you guys, because I would like to have little pockets of friends all about, thinking I'm a social butterfly, but it was just basically so that I could always, someone would want to go out, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
It's like almost like for me it was a coping mechanism to not be alone. Like the less I was alone, the less I'd get in my own head because I
yeah.
just know when I got back to my apartment, I had to sober up and it was before I had roommates. So I would just get in my own head and my anxiety would kick in, my depression would kick in. And I'm like, if I don't have anybody to party with, I'm going to lose my mind. So I would just
Mm,
and if I didn't have anybody to party with, I would go to a dive bar and make friends there. And that
yeah.
was, I mean, so-called friends, more of acquaintances, but that was my way of killing time. And I would just get drunk and go home and repeat it. And after a while, I think my friends in my 20s, the whole group of friends that I had, some of them from college, some of them from work, I think a lot of them got kind of sick of me because a lot of them were growing up and kind of maturing, and I was continuing to live life as a party, and that started to kind of hurt my feelings and kind of, just kind of wear on my psyche a little bit because I started to think more lowly of myself. My self-esteem was already kind of low because I was a drunk, I was young, I
Hmm.
thought I had a lot of potential, but I wasn't using it, I wasn't reaching it, and so that just progressed into much more heavy drinking, I would say, into my late 20s, where I um, married a bartender at my at my bar, like my regular bar that I would go to.
Hmm.
Once I did that, my drinking got just exponentially worse. Like I started getting myself into hospitals on a regular basis
And was
and
she a
jail.
drinker as well? I mean, obviously working in a
Yeah,
bar.
she was a
Yeah,
big drinker, but more functional, I would
yeah,
say.
yeah.
The way it progressed was because I would go to this bar that was pretty close to my apartment, and I would probably go there every night, but especially if she was working, I would go because I wanted to, flirt with her and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And when we started kind of dating, I would spend more time there to hang out with her until she closed up. So instead of going to the bar after work for just a couple of hours, just to have some nightcaps and get a buzz and go home and repeat the same thing the next day. Once
Mm.
I started dating her, I started drinking up until like 1 a.m. until she would close. And then after that, I would follow her to her house where she and her roommates would be drinking until about 3, 4 a.m. So I would keep up with them. And then I would try to wake up the next day a few hours later and go to work and then try
But
to come home
they're
and
not
take a
having to get
nap.
up
And
until about midnight, midday or whatever. Yeah, they're not getting up till noon. Yeah, so
yeah, and I'm getting up 3 hours later, so I just started to like run on fumes at work, and then I would stop working out after work before going to the bar. I would just go take a nap instead, and then I would go to the bar to go see her, and then stay up until she closed, and then stay up and party with the friends, and then I started to wake up with incredible shakes all the time at her house, and that's when like the real dependency started, and I caught myself going into her kitchen at like 6 a.m. When she was sleeping, and I in a dark kitchen, and I would sit in the living room, and I would just grab the big bottle of vodka, and I'd just be pouring it with my hands, just uncontrolled, trying to hold it up to my mouth and pouring shots into my mouth until they went away, and then
shit.
I would go back to sleep for a little bit, and then I would be able to, then I would be too hungover, and I started calling in sick to work, and that's where it just
Yeah.
turned into. It started really dramatically affecting my life. And months later, a couple months later, I ended up, I showed up at a bar one morning, a few months into that relationship, and after I just got up, I got drunk at her house at like 6 a.m. And then I was like, you know what, it would be fun to go to a bar right now. And I went to a bar at like 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. And the bartender is somebody I'd known for a while, and she's the wife of one of my best friends. And she just looks at me and she just goes, Ryan, you look like shit. She's like, you're somebody I always thought was a great looking guy, and I always admired you, but something's going on with you. And I just go, yeah, I don't feel right, And I ended up like realizing no matter how much I kept drinking, the shakes weren't going away. And so I checked myself into a hospital, and they said that my BAC was like a point 4 or something like that, something really deadly. And I was like, I'm still functioning. I drove myself to the hospital. I was just at a bar, but clearly it's not even, I can't get rid of these shakes. And they're like, yeah, we need to put you in detox. So that was my first experience in a hospital where I really had to sit back and think, wow, I have taken this problem to another level.
Yeah. Like because you said when, before you kind of met that lady that became your wife, did you said, oh, I thought it was, it started becoming a problem and then it kind of ramped up. At what point did you think I've got a problem? What level, what stage did you think, I think I've got a bit of a drink problem here? Or was it only really towards that point?
Oh, I would say I realized I had a problem at age 24 where I thought this is
Yeah.
something that's holding me back. This is something that's affecting my relationships
Yeah.
with significant others or with friends. I'm making drunk decisions. I'm taking my prescription pills while I'm drinking, and I'm blacking out all the time. So that was a problem. So there's a lot of times substances involved with alcohol. So the drinking would always make everything worse, though. So
Yeah.
I would say around 24 is when I knew it was something that I couldn't, I could control, but I had a problem with it. So I
Yeah.
would do my best to regulate it. I would still go to the gym. I would still try to like drink less and less some weeks. I'd be like, today I'm only having a few.
Yeah.
Tomorrow I'm not going to drink, and then I'm going to wait till the weekend, and then I'll drink really hard on the weekends. But that never really ended up working out. But I knew I had a problem at like 24, but I really started to be physically dependent on it. I'd say around 28, 29.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think I was about 26, and I think I started realizing that a lot of the bad shit in my life was, or anything bad that had happened to me, was stemming from my alcohol use, and my drinking behaviors were definitely not like my friends. Like I would have friends that would come out, and then we'd maybe go to a party, maybe that would be at the weekend, but there was all these, like I said before, there was all these different groups of friends, and no one, like I was always the instigator, like, oh, let's stay up, let's go for another one, or just one for the road, or this or that. My behaviors were definitely like everyone would try and maybe keep up with me at
The
different
guilty
levels and
conscience.
all that. But yeah, there was talk of it. People would say, I don't think anyone actually said, do you think you've got a drink problem? But there was little subtle things like, oh, you had a lot yesterday or this, but I just brushed it off. It wasn't like I knew
Yeah,
in my head, yeah, my drinking is definitely a lot heavier than everyone else's, but I didn't think it was an issue. That's
still
probably
in
the word.
denial.
I knew it was a problem, but I didn't think it was a problem that I needed to address, if that makes sense. I
Yeah.
just thought, this is me, this is my life, blah, blah, blah. I'm functioning, I'm cracking on with it. So, yeah. So, how was that hospital stay then? How did they give you Librium to detox, or what was the.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't really know what that was at the time, but now looking back at it, now that I've been hospitalized like 5, 6 times since then, it was Librium where they gave me like a special treatment plan on how many to take per day and taper off because it's a benzodiazepine. So I
Mother's
had
little
been used to,
mother's little helper, they used to call it in the 60s, I think. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, this is
yeah.
exactly. It's like Xanax basically. So it made the
Mm,
withdrawals a little better, but like I kept trying to tell the doctors I don't want to leave the hospital. Like I feel like I'm gonna drink as soon as I get out of here.
mhm.
So they started suggesting rehab, and they had counselors show up, and I just said I was in denial, kind of like you just talked about thinking hey, I might be a little overboard on drinking, but I don't think it's really going to control my life. I was still in that kind of denial where I was like, oh, but I can still stop doing this on my own. So I rejected the offer to go to rehab, and I said, okay, I'll get out of the hospital. So I got out of the hospital. I started taking that Librium stuff, and my now ex-wife at the time was obviously like, I was trying to minimize it to her. I just said I got sick. I think I like drank too much. My stomach was killing me, so I'm okay now. But she knew what was up. She had talked to some people and found out that I was in there for alcohol, and I was still shaking and stuff, and she had seen me a couple of times shaking, and I was so embarrassed by it because I was so used to like looking like I had it all together around her, and I didn't like her seeing me in a vulnerable place. So on like day three of day three out of the hospital, I finally just had enough. She said she was going to come over, and I immediately I had a roommate at this time, went into his liquor cabinet and grabbed a bunch of vodka and started chugging it. And she came back. She's like, wow, you seem so much more normal than yesterday. Are you sure you didn't drink? And I was like, no, I didn't drink. I'm just starting to feel better. But no, in reality, I was back on the alcohol. So it took me 3 days to not learn my lesson. I just went straight for it when I told myself I wouldn't drink for a while. And it just got worse. And it continued on for the next, I would say, 3 years of marriage off and on.
So yeah,
She,
sorry. So you weren't married with her at this point, and then so when she married you, she obviously knew you'd start drinking again.
yeah,
But
we,
I don't think anyone wants to hear, like, especially if you're in your twenties, like no one wants to be with someone that's like, oh, I'm an alcoholic, I can't drink ever again, blah blah blah. It's like if you say to them, listen, this is fine. I've had a little blip here, but I'm gonna get back to managing my drinking. I'm gonna do it moderation and all that. Of course, that's like music to their ears because they're like, yeah, I can still have a drink around them, so that's cool. So no one's wanting to. I think it's only when I know some alcoholics that have quit it in their twenties, and great, good on them. They're like open and honest about it. But I think for the majority of us, like even in my late 30s, with my partner at the time, like I don't think she wanted to admit that had a major problem with it because again, it would mean that there was no alcohol in the house, and we both. I was
yeah,
like, yeah, no, I'll get a handle on this, which obviously I didn't. Anyway, sorry, carry on.
no. I know exactly what you said, where I really tried to mask how bad it really was to her. I tried to, because I was making decent money and I had a nice apartment. When she and I agreed to get married, I was like, I'm gonna get us this nice place, and I did because I had still had some money in my account,
Yeah, yeah,
and I was able to put on this nice little persona that everything was all just hunky dory because I still would exercise. I'd still take care of myself in some ways, and I would put on this front that I had it all together. So I was able, one night when we were drinking really hard, I think we were actually fighting, which is the interesting part. We were fighting about something, and then somehow in our drunken stupor, we agreed, let's just get married. This will solve all our problems. And we have no idea why we came to that conclusion. So we ended up eloping basically about a week and a half later, and just having a few friends come to our wedding. And of course, our wedding consisted of bar hopping, and finishing the night at the place that we had met. So,
nice.
so our relationship consisted of drinking. So I think the idea of me quitting drinking wouldn't be that appealing to her either.
Yeah,
So I liked that at the time, though. I didn't want to quit drinking. I just wanted to prove to myself that I could not let it control me.
yeah, yeah. And then how did that go through with the marriage? How long was the marriage? Did it
It
last?
was precisely 3 years. Yeah.
Right, right.
And yeah, precisely 3 years. And there was a lot of ups and downs. It was pretty toxic. And a lot of that was my fault. I mean, we both drank excessively. I would say she was more of a functional drinker than me,
Yeah.
but she still had her sets of issues when she drank. And we had some drugs involved as well. There's a period where she went to get help as well for a while, and I didn't make any efforts on my end to get help. So that was my fault. And then there was a time where I ended up quitting drinking altogether, and she didn't. So we were just never on the same page. So after about 3 years, finally, it's just kind of, we just decided, to put it in the nicest way possible, that we just aren't meant to be, and it's time to
Yeah.
move on.
Yeah, well, I
Yeah.
mean, sometimes that's it. You meet in a kind of on a in a war zone, and the marriage is a war zone, and then it's like, well, do you know what? This is it. It's time to kind of amicably part ways, because this is not. We're not getting any younger, and we're not bringing anyone any bringing each other any joy. So yeah, and I think, do you know what? Let's be honest. Like, I had a massive codependent relationship, and looking back, did we love each other? Or did we just love the fact that nobody judged? We didn't judge each other. It was like, oh, you've come home with a bottle of whiskey, right? I'll get the glasses. Do you know what I mean? There was no ever any like, oh, we're drinking too much or this. It was just,
Yeah.
let's get as drunk as possible. And that went on for, I don't know, it was like 4.5 years, maybe 5 years. But there was
The
no,
codependence is everything.
just absolutely. And it was like we'd started, like we met in a bar. And that was just from day one, our relationship was just chaotic and drunken and just
Yeah.
messy, you
Toxic.
know? Yeah, just
Yeah.
absolutely toxic. Yeah, of course, like fights, this, that, and the other, losing jobs, this, that, and the other, moving apartments, just hedonistic and crazy, But we didn't see it
It's
was a
amazing how
problem.
chaotic it gets. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But we ended up parting ways, and I think I got sober for a little while after that. But then I was like, no, no, no. Do you know what? That was that relationship that was causing me to drink. So I'm okay. I can continue on. So yeah.
That's the excuses I would use. I would always say, yeah, the reason I drank, it was circumstantial, but I'm doing this now, so I can still drink. Any excuse I had to keep drinking, I would drink.
Yeah, yeah. And then so you moved through somewhere. This was a different woman, wasn't it? You moved through somewhere to her job, to where she lived, and that was quite chaotic. Was
Yeah,
she abusive as well, or?
yeah, that was yeah, one of my last real relationships, and it was so toxic, it like basically scarred me up, even till this day, where I got along with her really well when we met. We met online,
Hmm.
and we saw each other on the weekends. She was about 2.5 hours away, and I'd see her on the weekends, and I we'd get along and have a great weekend, and I'd go back and work for the week and just kind of repeat that. And then finally we decided, hey, let's move in together, and then I finally moved over because she wasn't able to move to me. I never even wanted her to move because I kind of liked the area she lived in anyways,
Hmm.
but she had a child and I didn't need him to change schools and stuff like that. So moved over there, got a place together, and within, I would say, a day, I started to see all these like kind of red flags that I didn't see when I was visiting on weekends, where she
Yeah.
is just, everything from just not the person I thought I was going to be with. But, it started off with like throwing things. It started off with, I would say screaming. I just don't like screaming. I don't like that kind of stuff. It's just, but the worst part is that she was, I realized the whole time while I was getting to know her, she wasn't allowed to drink, which is probably why
Oh,
we got along so well. Only I was allowed to drink because she wasn't allowed to drink because she had DUIs
oh
and she
wow.
got these random UAs. So she was sober most of the time I saw her. But around the time I moved in, it timed around the time where she was allowed to start drinking again. So once I moved over there, we started actually partying together, and that's where we started to see each other's toxic sides
Yeah.
and start to let loose the bad parts of our character, like reacting things, getting angry, jealousy,
Hmm.
just all those toxic traits that relationships, consist of.
Yeah, but
Mm.
also the alcohol brings that out, and I'm not saying that everyone's perfect, but for sober relationships, it's you're dealing with problems head on. You're not kind of, suppressing them and putting them down until you then have a drink and all comes flooding to the top.
Yeah,
And that seems to be the way when there's alcohol involved in a relationship. If you're both drinking heavily, it's just volatile, you know.
It
It's
brings out all
crazy.
those negative emotions.
So how do they? I don't think they do that over here. So if you get a DUI, they can stop you from drinking. Like how do they do random breathalyzers, or how is it a drug like a blood
Yeah,
test?
they'll have you set up on a program where either uh, a lot of people have both, but you have a blow and go where you have to blow into something to drive your car.
Hmm.
So that's one thing where you have to blow a point zero to drive your vehicle.
It's
And then
connected to the
another thing,
ignition type thing. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
ignition interlock. And then the other thing, which I was on for a while when I got my DUI, which I'll get to.
Hmm.
Another thing is like that just have you set up for random UAs. So if you fail one, it's a probation violation. So that's what she was on, and I was on that program too because I later on got a DUI.
Mm. Mm.
After the relationship and everything. So
So yeah, we'll get to that. What? How did that relationship? How long did it last for, and what kind of brought that to a head?
it lasted about a year,
Okay.
and it came to a head because she was extremely she'd be extremely
Yeah.
violent and abusive and there's some times where I'd say I did my best to defend myself, but I wouldn't like hit back or anything. But I just was like, she's lashing out at me. I got to put my hands up, and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so that those fights got worse and worse for a while, and she ended up getting arrested 2 times for domestic violence on me
Wow.
because the police were called by the neighbors, and the neighbors came in, and I'm the only one with blood all over me, so obviously they just took her to jail. So the last time I saw her, I, for some reason, had gone to her house to pick up some things that I had left behind when I had moved out the first time, and she thought that we were going to try to kind of resolve things, and this is the last time I saw her. And I showed up and I picked up some things, and she found out that I was going to go stay at a friend's house, and uh, she had heard that we were hanging out with some girls that night, and she ended up trying to come find me, and she showed up, and I saw her car outside, and she blocked my car in, and I went outside and said, "Hey, no, you can't be here." And she like started walking towards me, so I got in my car and closed the door, and she somehow stopped and opened my door before I could lock it and started hitting me. And then about a minute later, police are rolling up and they arrested her for domestic violence again. So just
Wow.
so twice, and then that was the last time I've seen or heard from her. And I don't know. I hope she's doing okay. But
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like she
yeah,
had
so,
issues with the alcohol as well. And I mean, it's I I'm not going to say that I'm going to blame everything on the alcohol. It sounds like she possibly had some violent tendencies as well. I know that alcohol will
yeah,
accentuate that and accelerate it, but I've never laid a finger on any partners or anything like that when I've been drinking, because that's not
yeah,
me. Even though I
yeah.
can
Same.
completely black out drunk, but it sounds like she had issues, because obviously you saw the nice part of her when she wasn't allowed to drink, and then suddenly
Yeah,
when you move in, she's allowed to drink again, and then it's like,
yeah.
yeah,
The timing
explosion.
was impeccable. I
Ah,
had
yeah,
nothing but good impressions of her. And then when I
yeah,
started to see what it was like drinking, and I wasn't perfect either. I started to react to things. When two toxic people are in a room, you both become pretty toxic. And
yeah.
I started to have jealousy problems. I started to have control issues, and she had control issues. And it's just, yeah, it was bad. I was bad for her. She was bad for me. And
And the alcohol
you
was
know,
bad for both of you. And
the
like, let's
alcohol was
let's
bad.
not forget that alcohol is a depressant. It's like an opioid. It's a downer. It's not
Yeah,
great for anyone's mood at all. Whether you've had a good day, bad day, or level day, you drink, you're going to go down.
yep,
That's what it does. That's the drug that it is. So, yeah, yeah.
exactly.
So, what age are
And I
you now
never
at this?
realized that.
Sorry, go on. Yeah,
I
yeah.
thought it always cheered me up, and I
Yeah,
thought it for a while it was helping my depression, even though I always heard it was a depressant. But I was like, well, it's the only time where I can like feel like I can be myself and express myself. So I thought
yeah,
that alleviated my depression. But at the same time, I was taking all these antidepressants my entire life, and I was never given those medications a chance to work because I was drinking on them. And they say don't consume alcohol on these. So right now is like the only time I've ever let my medications work. So
yeah. And it's mad because they don't. they do tell you, but they don't really make it a big deal because when you get like when I was given citalopram, I was like I went for depression and I was probably stinking of alcohol that morning when I went to the doctors because I'd been drinking vodka in the morning. But they didn't say how much you drinking or this, that, and other. They just said, "Here's some citalopram. Go away, drink. Take these." They weren't working because of the amount I was drinking. Like if you're not drinking through the week, then the citalopram will work. And if you're only having a
Yeah.
few drinks at the weekend, the doctors need to work out what your level of alcohol consumption is before they start handing these drugs out. Because if they just
But
say to you,
most of us
"Listen,"
lie about it.
yeah, if they just, well, exactly, most people lie and then they're going to accept that. But if they said to you, "Stop drinking for 3 months. If you're still depressed after that, come back and we'll put you on pills because there's something else deeper going on." But like, just knock it on the head for 3 months. But
Yeah.
chances are most people aren't going to do that, because
That's what I'm
it's a
saying. Most
socially
people aren't going
accepted
to do
thing.
it, or most people aren't honest.
Yeah, yeah. But it's like the thing is, we all associate drinking with these parties and social events and gatherings and going out with friends and blah, blah, blah. Because for the first like couple of drinks, for that first half hour, and then maybe like 45 minutes, couple hours, you're getting those dopamine hits, you're getting that, and then it's downhill. The next day, the
Yeah.
day after that, the day after that. And then obviously like yourself and I, we're seeking out that dopamine hit that we've lost, so we just keep drinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I know. You just kind of keep it going, and then you need more and more and more just to hit that dopamine hit.
Well, it's the sickness, isn't it? And I always compare it to, I've never taken heroin and I've never been, obviously, had to go through withdrawal from that, but they are not even getting a high at that point. They're just fighting off the sickness. And
Yeah.
it's like, I've seen it before, but Jen, my wife, and I were watching Dope Sick. I don't know if you've seen that series. It's about the
I
Oxycontin.
did. It was
It's an
good.
amazing
Yeah.
series, but that's like they were just had to keep doubling their numbers, and then they were fighting off the
Yeah.
sickness, and that's what it is.
Yeah.
And alcohol's the same. It's one of the worst ones to. I think it's quite a quick detox compared to other drugs, but it's one of the most if not the most dangerous,
Yeah.
because you can go into all sorts of heart defects or
Seizures.
seizures, and yeah,
Permanent brain damage for some people. I mean,
dehydration.
which I'll get to, my last drinking experience in a hospital visit, I had the worst seizures. Like, it was pretty much deadly. I couldn't
Yeah.
even drink my way through withdrawals. So,
Yeah. So
um,
after that relationship, what age are we? Where are we getting up to? Are you getting close to the
we're getting to
DUI or?
about, well, in the midst of all that, during or a little before that relationship, my little sister had passed away of a fentanyl overdose, and
Yeah, I
that
remember you saying
kind of
that, man. I'm so
escalated.
sorry to hear that. Like, and how much younger than you was she?
She was exactly 8 years younger than me.
And was she
Yeah.
like a regular user of fentanyl, or was it just a kind of, because
Um,
it's a scary
what happened
ass
was,
dangerous drug, isn't it?
it is. It's so scary. I didn't really know anything about it at the time
Yeah.
until, I've been learning a lot more the last couple of years. But she had some surgeries, cosmetic surgeries, and they had prescribed her oxy, and she got it kind of
Oh,
attached to that for a while, and then started resorting to fentanyl. So she became addicted to it, I'd say, for like about a year, and then got sober for 5 months. And then she relapsed one time and took a dose that she thought she could handle with no not able to handle that amount
yeah, because
because her tolerance was down,
tolerance.
and then
Yeah.
she just passed away. Yeah.
Ah, man, I'm so sorry to hear
Yeah.
that. And
So,
how
so
old
that
was
was
she?
something I was kind of battling. Yeah.
Sorry, how old was she at the time?
27.
27. Yeah, sorry, man. And that's I've lost a few people, friends, and that never anyone as close to as a sibling. But for me, anything at that point was an excuse to drink. It was like, and I'm sure you were the same. It was like, well, this has happened, so I'll be fucked if anyone's going to tell me I can't drink because this is the one time that I think I
Yeah.
deserve to drown my sorrows. And I'm sure you were probably exactly like that.
Yeah, that's exactly. I mean, surprisingly, at that time when it happened, I was a very functional drinker. I
Hmm.
was getting to work every day. I was exercising, and I was drinking about the same amount every night. So I rarely ever experienced legitimate hangovers during that period.
Hmm.
So when she passed, it was, I would say, the right time for me to be able to cope with it the right way because I wasn't going on hardcore benders. I was just consistently
Yeah,
drinking about
you're
the same amount every day.
even keel. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, even keel. I would still drink in the morning every now and again. After
Hmm.
my 5 mile run, I would chug a little drink before work. I would have a little drink at my lunch break. And I'd have a few drinks after work, but I was never over the top drunk, which was
Hmm.
interesting.
Yeah.
So I was able to process. I was never. I don't think I processed her death very well, but I didn't. I would seeing a therapist and stuff and talking about it, but I never really like let myself get emotional about it. I tried to just think, I had a great time with her the last time I saw her. We
Mm.
spent the whole day together and we had the best conversation. And I felt like I got some form of closure because I knew that she was fighting some demons that I will never know about.
Hmm.
And so I didn't beat myself up too much. I mean, I had sent her money the day before she passed away, which I had some guilt thinking maybe that was what the money was for,
Mm.
uh, to buy that last fix. So I don't know, but I tried my best not to beat myself up to it, uh, beat myself up for it. I didn't really address it though until I got into rehab this past year. So.
Yeah. I mean, you're not. You're. It's understandable that you're gonna blame yourself for it, but it doesn't sound like there's absolutely anything you could do, whether you'd sent the money or someone else had given her money, if even if that's what it was for, or do you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, it's better just not to know. It happened and it's a tragedy, and I'm glad you're kind of getting the help that you need to kind of deal with that. And so, how did your kind of drinking spiral at that point until you got the DUI? Was
So
that
after
connected or?
Um, s- so after my sister's death and after that toxic relationship, I had gotten into a few other kind of drinking related relationships,
Hmm.
and eventually, I would say I was partying really hard on weekdays. At this time, I decided to quit my job and focus on trading stocks full time,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
um, which makes me my own boss basically, which
yeah.
means I have to wake up early and do it myself. But I mean, it gave me a lot of freedom because I can just wake up in the middle of the night for like 3 hours, do some trading, and pass back out.
Hmm.
Or that gives me the freedom to be at my computer with a drink in my hand and nobody can tell me what to do. Nobody can fire me. And
Yeah.
so that started to really make it bad. So I was drinking at home. I resorted to whiskey and I was never a big whiskey guy. But once I got into whiskey, that is where all hell broke loose. I was becoming sloppy drunk at my house,
Yeah.
sloppy drunk at the bars. People would have to give me rides home. It was just becoming a problem. So over the next year or two, which is leading up until fairly recently, I was just really, I would say, living at the regular bar at home. I would usually go in this like month-long cycle that's really hard to describe, where I would start off social drinking, and by the end of the month, I would be in my room, never leaving the room, sweaty, shaky, keeping alcohol under my bed and chugging it. And at this time, I'd, had to, uh, basically never leave the house. I was ordering delivery alcohol all the time from
Yeah.
DoorDash
Oh.
and just never leaving. I became agoraphobic basically, kept my room dark, uh, ignored all my phone calls. And that's when like the isolation got really bad.
Yeah.
I had isolated before in my 20s a few times, but this time it kept happening very often. And that led to where I ended up getting a DUI because it was like the day before my birthday and I had gone to a bar people offered to buy me drinks. So I just went there really quick. I wasn't really in the mood to party because I was so out of it. Anyways, I probably had about 20 drinks at my house
Hmm.
already, but I still went to this bar next to my house and um, people bought me, I think, 9 shots I counted, and I took all of them within like an hour and then got in my Jeep and started driving home. Same route that I always take, and all of a sudden behind me I just see these lights come on and I'm like, great, it's finally happened. I should have about 3,000 DUIs. I'm about to get one. That was my thought.
Do you think anyone from the bar had shopped you, like told that you obviously left the bar? And I mean, I know they're not trying to do it to get you, catch you out, but they're doing it probably for your safety. Or do you just think you were driving erratic and the police were like, right, this guy's.
Oh, no. I don't think they outed me. I mean, I I do this thing where like if I'm really drunk and I don't want to like people to really notice it, I'll just, pay my tab, or I'll just say I'm going to the bathroom and I'll just disappear and hop in my car and leave.
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't think anybody reported it because it was around 4th of July is when my birthday is. So there's cops always watching the bars to see who's going to be leaving drunk. It's kind of like a entrapment, basically.
Yeah.
So I knew as soon as I saw them across the street, I was like, no, I already kind of decided I'm probably going to be pulled over. I'm probably finally going to jail for drinking. And I had never gotten a DUI, and I've driven, unfortunately, I feel bad, but I've driven drunk a million times, like I would always drink with a beer in my hand while driving. Like that was constant, even on the way to work. So when I saw the lights behind me, I just pulled over, which I didn't even pull over correctly. I was halfway into somebody's yard, and they just roll down the window, and I'm just like, they just look at me, and I start nodding my head, and they said, "What are you nodding your head for, sir?" And I said, I've been drinking. I just admitted it.
Yeah,
Just not even deny
I'm
it.
not gonna fight this, guys. Yeah.
No.
Like
No,
you caught me.
no.
Yeah. Fair
Well,
enough. And
and
so
that
what's the kind of penalty for that over there? What what did you blow in the meter and the breathalyzer?
I blew a .34. So they gave me this charge called an excessive DUI,
Yeah.
which is extreme DUI, where it's like you're a danger to, your surroundings. And so it was a very much higher charge than just a regular DUI. And so I spent the night in jail, and my charges, I think I was looking at 1 year in jail and like 3 or 4 years of probation, but I ended up hiring an attorney who got it dropped down to a regular DUI, so I never had to serve any days, and I just had probation for 1 year. And on good behavior, without getting any probation violations and paying all my fees, I ended up getting off probation early. So
Okay. And I'm guessing that was
I
not when you stopped drinking.
No, I kept drinking through that entire phase. I mean, I told the courts that I was clean. They never called me in for a pee test the entire time. I drank the entire time. When I got out of jail, my friend bailed me out of jail, and I knew there was a mini mart a couple of blocks from the jail. And my stepdad, it's kind of a small town we live in over here. He saw my Jeep parked halfway in somebody's lawn. So when I got out of jail, I gave him a call because I saw missed calls from him, and he said, "Are you in jail? Because I saw your Jeep parked, off the side of the road or whatever." And I'm like, "Yeah, I just got out." And he's like, "Oh, okay, I'll come pick you up." And I said, "Oh, yeah, okay, but don't pick me up at jail. I'm just walking down. Pick me up next to this store." That was because I wanted to get a drink in me before he picked me up. That's how bad my dependence was. So I rushed down to that mini mart from jail, walked down this like dark trail in the morning, and I'm still kind of drunk from getting pulled over and all that. And I went in, I bought,
Yeah. You needed it.
I needed it. I was joking around with the police in the jail before I left, and they were all laughing together. Like I clearly haven't comprehended what kind of trouble I was in. So I went and bought those drinks, and my stepdad picked me up at the mini mart, and I chugged those drinks before he got there, and I was feeling good, and I just completely disregarded that I got in trouble. And then I asked him, "Hey, what are we doing today?"
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So then, how long further did you kind of drink, and what else happened, and what was your your rock bottom with Ryan? What was your final rock bottom then?
Okay, so it was I got into this the last relationship I was really invested in, I guess, was with this girl who was also a big drinker, and it was soon after that DUI, and she and I got really, kind of close for a while, and I ended up going and trying to think. We got into a relationship, and there was this one night where I had told myself I needed to stop drinking. And actually, no, it wasn't. Having a mind blank on how it happened. So one night, this has nothing to do with the relationship, but one night I would broken up, and I told myself I'm going to stop drinking, and it was at like 4 a.m. and I was on this bender. I had this hospital visit about 2 weeks prior, and I had this hospital visit where I was doing the the Librium thing and all that, and it was all because I was having withdrawals and ended up in the hospital.
Sure.
So once I was in the hospital again, they told me to go to rehab. I denied it, and then a couple of weeks later, I decided, okay, well, I'm going to try drinking again. So in the middle of the night, I walked to the store because I wasn't in any position to drive. I was like still shaking. I wouldn't even be able to hold a steering wheel. And I went and picked up some alcohol and I started drinking again. And that led to another 3 weeks of dark drinking. And I was like, had this kind of like emotional breakdown where I started sending all these text messages to people saying, I'm feeling kind of like suicidal. I'm really hating myself. I can't believe I keep doing this. And just like really dark messages. And then, I send those messages and then and then a little bit later, I think I end up in the hospital again. And then I get out of the hospital and then I tell myself, I'm going to start working out again. This is in the middle of the night. And I start working out again for a few days and start to feel a little bit better. And then I convince myself again, I can drink again. And I go buy more alcohol and start drinking again. And then finally, a week and a half goes by. So this is like hospital visit after hospital visit, repeat.
It's just a revolving door, isn't it?
These doctors are getting sick of me at this point because I keep showing them with the same problems. And then finally one night, instead of saying, hey, I'm going to go to the hospital again, I decide I'm going to start tomorrow. I'm just never going to drink again. Like, I'm just done. Tomorrow is it. And then finally I got up at 4 a.m. like I usually would when I was really motivated, and I went for a jog. And this is still kind of buzzed, and I'm trying to call that my last drink, and I'm still kind of buzzed. And I said, that's been the last drink I'm ever going to have. And I go on this jog in the middle of the night. And next thing you know, I'm running down these like brick stairs, and I end up slipping and face planting, tumbling all down the stairs. I break my teeth out. I gash my eye, black eye. My lip is busted. I have stitches right here, stitches down here. Face is unrecognizable, but I didn't know this at the time. So I just got up from my run. I'm like, okay, I finished my run. I just thought maybe my lip's bloody. And I finished my run and I went back to my place, laid in bed, and then in the middle of the night, ended up looking in the mirror, and all of a sudden I see blood is everywhere.
Wow.
And I'm like, holy crap. So I didn't know what was going on. I was just so disoriented, and I guess I must have suffered some kind of head injury too, but I didn't notice at the time.
Yeah.
Just because I had the adrenaline going from running, and I just thought, I'm being tough. I'm changing my life finally. And next thing you know, the ambulance gets called, and they come and pick me up, and they look at me, and they're like, your injuries are too significant for our hospital. We have to airlift you to Spokane.
Jesus.
So they airlift me on a helicopter. I've always wanted to be on a helicopter. That was my first experience. I'm laying there in the helicopter, just feeling like a complete winner, right?
This is it. All your dreams come true.
Yeah, I'm just bloody. They're stitching me up, and then so they get me to the hospital in Spokane, and I don't even want to know why had to be airlifted. I'm like, do I have permanent damage? Like, is my face falling off? Am I gonna die? I'm like, why couldn't a small town hospital handle this? And so I'm laying in there in the hospital bed and getting stitched up, getting my eye, my eye started having this infection prior to that fall. I was getting this infection in this eye right here, which still to this day is hard to fully open because it's still healing. It's going to take years for it to be normal, if ever. But I started getting this corneal infection. And by the time, since I had been drinking so much in that last bender before I fell down the stairs, my infection had gotten worse and I completely neglected it. So by the time I was in the hospital, my eye was purple, all those injuries from that. So I just looked like hell, felt like hell, going through withdrawals, uh, you know, just being in a hospital again for like the fifth time in a year.
Yeah.
And this time, not even sure what injuries I'll heal from. My mother was like the only one that came to the hospital to see me, which reminded me that I just lost a lot of people in my life. That my mother, God rest her soul, God bless her. She is like my best friend. But she was the one that was there, just like by my side for
Yeah.
an entire week. She stayed stayed in Spokane on a hotel so she could be with me every day. And I decided then that I would change. That was what I felt was like my rock bottom at that time. But
Yeah.
this isn't where it ends though. It gets worse. I healed up from those injuries, got out of the hospital, and I told myself I'm doing it different. I'm going to go to AA. So I went to AA for 3 months. After that, I started to really take things seriously because I wouldn't want to go to rehab. So I figured, let's do something different. I'll try some meetings. And I ended up building these relationships with these people for 3 months. Once I realized I got 90 days, which I heard was a big deal in AA, I
Yeah.
decided to slow down going. I slowed down and then I relapsed really bad for a month and a half. And then I ended up in the hospital again. And so I would say that injury combined with that relapse, I would say is a combined rock bottom because I started to see the light for 90 days when I was going to meetings, and then I still chose to drink again. And I told myself it would be one time, and
Yeah.
it went nonstop isolation drinking for a month and a half
Yeah.
until I had to go to the hospital one more time.
Yeah.
And that's where I looked up at the ceiling, and I was in the hospital, and I'm just filled with depression because I had been working so hard to get my life back and get my head back and I felt like I was doing it a lot of the time for other people. This time I decided, this nun walked in that I knew from childhood. She walked in and visited me in my room and she said, Ryan, what are you going to do this time? And I said, you know what? I'm going to get help. I'm going to go to rehab.
Yeah.
I'm going to get treatment. And I agreed to go to treatment for 45 days and actually 60 days. And I went to treatment and I never touched a drink since. And I've just been focusing on self-preservation and just being a better person ever since. And I'm very involved in the program and been working on this podcast the last few months. And just, it's been the best. I'm almost a year sober now.
I was going to say, how many days have you got now? So
About
what's
350 days.
so
Yeah.
your years? Oh, wow, 15 days. Wow, yeah.
350. Yeah.
No, but you got 15 days till a year.
Yeah, 15 days till a year.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm
Well done,
excited.
man. Well done. That's amazing. That's amazing,
Yeah.
brother. You know
Life is
what?
so clear now.
Yeah, I mean, so I did NA at the beginning, but I did AA, I did NA, I did SMART, I went to rehab, I relapsed, I had another two detoxes, I relapsed, and then I got a detox. Sorry, the third detox was the one that stuck, and I was just like, you know what? It's jails, institutions, and death. And I'd done jails and I'd done institutions, and I didn't fancy the third one. And I was just like, you know what? I'm going to do everything and anything I could. I didn't know about the 90 meetings in 90 days until I'd done about 100 days. And I was like, oh shit, I've done that, you know. But I needed it. I did NA I did all the meetings for like a year. And then I kind of slowed it down, and like I'll go sporadically now. I haven't been to any. Well, in fact, the NA over here is closed down, but there's still SMART, so I still do that sometimes. But I work for our charity over here. It's called Motivate, so I do peer mentoring over here. So I keep myself steeped in it. But for me, the first year of the fellowship was just paramount. Like I know a lot of people don't do it, and whether or not you believe in God or higher power, whatever, forget about that. For me, I needed the militancy of the fellowship. You know, I did my 12 steps. I liked the fact that when I was sharing, no one else was sharing. That was it. There was no crosstalk. It was like my story, my share, and then I would listen to everyone else's. And I needed it because that was my little tribe. And for the first year, it was like, yeah, you know, I was doing my service. I was doing this, doing that, you know, reading the big book. And it just, after the year, I was like, right, I've done that. I'm going to move on to the next phase of my sobriety. There was a few things because of COVID, we
Yeah.
couldn't get into the rooms, and I was like, what happens if I can't get into the rooms? Am I going to relapse? And I didn't want that to happen, so I kind of was like, right, no, this is me now,
I
so I'm
heard that
moving on.
happen to a lot of people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I just thought I know it's there if I need it, but I'm gonna move on to phase two. But I think it's so remarkable that it helps so many people, and obviously it's helping and it's
I just
working for you. And to be 15
built so
days
many
short of a
friendships.
year, man. Yeah, when this comes out, you'll
Yeah.
be a year. So it's just. And
Yeah.
the thing is, like, it sounds like you've got that clarity. You've got that, you can see clearly now that and I know it's one day at a time and never say never and all of that. But that stuff that goes away, that fades. You know what I mean? Eventually, you'll be like, yeah, I'm not going to drink again.
I mean, the last 3 months, I would say I've just had this new level of clarity and
Hmm.
like comfort in my own skin. My self-confidence is better than it was before drinking.
Yeah,
My, I've just, the more I want to get to know people, the more I want to hear their stories. And that's kind of what led me to, wanting to start the podcast
yeah,
and like share my story and hear others because I just, now I just want to share what I've learned through all this because it's been such an uphill battle and a roller coaster of a life and
hmm,
jail visits. I've been in jail probably 5, 6 times total
yeah.
and
And hospital
hospitals
visits.
probably 12 times. So
Yeah,
all to do alcohol.
yeah. And
So
it's that
I don't
thing.
want
It's
other people to,
I'm exactly
yeah,
the same as you. Like when I would come out of the meetings, especially in the first 100 days, I'd get home and I was living with my parents, and I'd be like wanting to tell them the stories, but obviously it's anonymous. So I was like, I can't tell you these stories. And the more and more I was
yeah,
like, these are the stories. Like, forget about, the 12 steps or this or that. It was the stories, the shares that got me sober and kept me sober. So that's why I've done the podcast, because I want people that are comfortable sharing their
yeah.
stories to the masses to tell the stories. And it's exactly why you're doing yours, which is, it's an amazing podcast,
Yeah.
Ryan. And I'm loving
Thank you
every episode that you're putting out, and I'm just trying to keep up with you. But your content
so
is just
much.
flying out at the moment. So yeah. So
Thank you. And you have a great podcast too. So I got
thanks,
to keep
man.
listening.
Thanks, man. And so, what advice would you give to someone that was just kind of starting out, early days of recovery or not even started yet?
I would say be patient, find
Hmm.
yourself, make sure that you're going to make this change, make sure you're personally ready for that change. Make sure you're not doing it to appease other people. Because I
Yeah.
think that was one of my biggest mistakes was doing it to keep other people happy. I realized once I wanted that change, I wanted to see the best in myself. I wanted to love myself. I wanted to face whatever I was numbing, all the traumas, all the stuff that we're avoiding to face. If you can find the strength to face those things, it gets a
Hmm.
lot easier every day you're sober. And it's tough at first, it's rough, but if you have a support system, you know, I'm not saying AA is the solution for everyone, but it's worked for me.
Yeah.
And I think having a support group, having people to talk to, having people you're comfortable with to open up and vent to is great to have. Just don't do it alone, you know?
Yeah.
You don't want to be alone in this.
No. And some people do it, they manage it, but there's very few, even the people that go to AA or SMART or NA, whatever, the people that get sober and stay sober, the percentage is tiny. It's like 2% of people
Yeah.
that get sober stay sober. So, my advice is just try anything. Like, a lot of people go, oh, well, I don't believe in God or this. And it's like, yeah, you don't have to. Just go try it.
No,
And don't say, oh,
just
well, what if someone sees me? They're there for the same fucking reason you are. So don't worry about that.
nobody will judge you.
Get over yourself. Would you rather do what you're doing at the moment or get sober? So yeah, I'm like, try
Have
everything.
humility.
Yeah, I mean, I was there. I was like, I would do SMART. I went to our drugs and alcohol team. I would do NA, CA, AA. I was doing online Zoom meetings, and it was just, I was like, you know what? I'm just throwing everything I can. I was watching YouTube, listening to Quit Lit, just throwing everything I could, because I was like, you know what? I don't want to be that person anymore. I don't want to live that life anymore. And I thought I need to just make these changes in my life. And once I can get past it and like what's a year in the grand scheme of things? I just got 5 years last week. Yeah, 2 weeks ago. So, I'm just like,
Awesome.
yeah.
Great.
And it's like that time has flown by, but I could still be drinking. Well, I probably wouldn't be here, to be honest. Like, I was on a, a downward spiral, and it wasn't good. But it is a slow killer.
Can
So
I
I
ask you a
possibly could
question?
still be here, just in a sad state of just drinking myself slowly to death. And you know what? I've
Can I
got an
ask you
amazing.
a,
Of
personal question
course you
about
can. Of
sobriety?
course you can. Yeah.
I was just curious because I know that I'm hitting that 1 year mark. Uh, did you ever feel like a drastic change in your like sense of awareness and your personality towards that close to that 1 year mark?
Yeah. I
Like I'm
mean,
just feeling all these more changes lately.
I was finding out who I was always supposed to be, if that makes sense. It was almost like like a shadow that was just out the corner of my eye, and I couldn't quite put my eye on it, and it was starting to kind of come round into vision and focus. And like the first year was all of that. I mean, it took longer than that, and don't be dismayed when you get to your year and you go, right, now what? Because
Yeah.
you'll get that. It's almost like the brakes have been taken off, and you're just like, whoa, like now what? What do I do now? It's like nothing. You keep
Yeah.
doing what you're doing, and you get to two, you get to three, you get to four. But it gets
Exactly.
easier. You'll have a lot of existential stuff going on in your head at the moment because coming up for a year is massive, and it is. But it's the
Yeah.
perfect time to not get complacent. Do you know what I mean? Because that can
Yeah.
easily.
Don't rest on your laurels.
Exactly. People tend to do that. They go, "Oh yeah, got a year." It's like good on you, but you still got a lot of hard work to do. You know what I mean? That's the thing. You got to still do what you're doing. Don't upset. What is it? Did you get yourself a plant? You got to get a plant for the first year, and then you get a pet in the second year, and then I think they say a partner in the third year. Now I tried dating in the first couple of years, and it was all for nothing. I was just like, I'm not ready. I'd go on a date and I'd be like, oh, it's not the right person or this. And it probably wasn't the right person. It definitely wasn't because I'm now married, but I wasn't ready
Yeah. I
either,
have a dog. He keeps me busy.
Yeah, like, I mean, I met the woman of my dreams and we got married last month. And it's just like, this wouldn't be happening if I wasn't not drinking. So,
Yeah, exactly. Like you just start to see all these things in your life slowly improve, and you're like, there's that saying, it's like what bad comes from quitting drinking? You never heard of anybody losing anything by quitting drinking. It's
well, one of my
you gain
questions, Ryan,
everything.
is do you regret getting sober?
Not at all. My life is better than it's ever been.
Exactly. I mean, I love the
Yeah.
saying, and I think I've heard it on your podcast a few times with your guest. I was sick and tired of feeling sick and tired, man, and it was
Yes.
like this
Yes.
weight was just lifted off me. And yeah, it's hard work at the
Yeah.
beginning, but you know what? The lying, the cheating, the stealing, the making up stories, trying to remember what lie I've told where, and then they just kind of
Yeah.
exponential growth of these lies and just nonsense that I'm telling. It was like that's hard work, man. This is easy. This is
Just
easy.
become a better person overall.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Have you got any recommendations for a podcast apart from, well, obviously yours and mine, a book or a film about kind of recovery?
I would say, well, I recommend Rock Bottom with Ryan. No, I'm just kidding.
Of course, no, no.
Um,
I mean, I'm going to put it in the show notes anyway. So
I
yeah,
recommend. I was on this show called Forged in Silence. I recommend that. It's
cool.
a couple of really great guys from Colorado who kind of give men, more specifically women too, but it's kind of a chance for men to open up about their emotions a little more.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
it's kind of a good show and good opportunity. I kind of like that. I recommend that. And there's another one called Through the Glass that's pretty good. We're talking about um, other personal things, personal issues,
Yeah,
life
yeah,
issues and
yeah, yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
So those were a couple that I checked out, and I'd be recommending those to a lot of people as well. I think
Cool.
it's
Thanks, man. Appreciate
got a
that.
good style to it. And a movie that I watched recently, it's kind of dark, but it's called Leaving Las Vegas with
Oh,
Nicolas Cage.
yeah. I
And it's dark and it's the worst part of alcoholism. But God, when I watched it, I could relate to it so much and it reminded me of where I was and where I never want to be again.
yeah. Do you know I watched that? I think I watched that not long after it came out, maybe the late '90s or early noughties. Nicolas Cage, and I still haven't gone back to watch it again. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like I think it's
Yeah.
a bit close to the bone. Like I've watched a lot of films where it's about
Yeah.
alcoholism and like the end days of that, but it's one of those ones that I
Yeah.
want to watch, but I just haven't got round to watching it yet. So it's on the list. But yeah, thanks for the recommendation. Yeah.
Yeah, you're
Um,
welcome.
yeah. Well, thanks, Ryan. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show, man. And I look
Thank
forward
you
to
so
coming on
much.
yours. But yeah, for
Can't
now,
wait.
have an amazing rest of your day, man, and we'll speak again soon.
You too. Thank you so much.
Cheers, Ryan. Take it easy, mate. Bye bye. Bye bye. Thanks, Ryan. Yeah. Um, Amazing conversation. So thank you for coming on and bearing your soul, and really kind of talking about what kind of trials and tribulations you went through. And I guess we can take from that drinking and drug using to an extent is, it doesn't discriminate, and it can affect anyone. It doesn't matter whether you've had trauma or not. The more you do it and the more you let it get out of control, there's really no coming back from it, and that's the sad thing here. It's you know, for Ryan to eventually admit defeat and then get some treatment was obviously a saving grace for him. Now Ryan has, kind of gone heavily into the fellowship, which I did for the first year as well. By the time this comes out, Ryan will have done a year. So whether or not that will change, I don't know. But Ryan is, from the sounds of it, quite religious, so that's good as well. That kind of holds him steadfast in his sobriety. But he does chair the meetings now, and he does a lot of service within the room. So that's obviously holding him afloat, which is great. As I say, for me, I did it religiously, not religiously, but militantly for the first year. And then I just felt like I needed to find something else, and so the first year is where a lot of things kind of change. You've done the first year, and as I said, you're kind of like, whoa, like, I don't know whether it's like take the brakes off, put the brakes on. It's one of those things where you're kind of like, what do I do now? And it's like, well, you just keep going. You keep going, and that's the kind of the key. You don't just go for a year and then go, wow, right, everything's fixed. It's not. You still got to do the work. So it sounds to me like Ryan will still keep steeped in the fellowship, because that's his thing, and he's obviously got a good group. I had a great group. We're still close with a lot of them. They say it has been kind of disbanded over here. I'm sure another one will be set up at some point. They did try another one, but there was a few issues with that. But yeah, it's just remarkable how, I guess, for someone that's of similar ages, about 7 years difference to us, but from both sides of the pond, that's why I'm trying to get a lot of different people from different parts of the world on, because essentially the not caring and the just the full on this is taking control of my life just is rampant with everyone. The pressing the fuck it button and just not giving a shit and just going hell for leather, and like he didn't know he was going to be caught by the police. He probably thought that it's about time, and he just held his hands up and was like, yep, getting myself a DUI. But to get let out of jail, and he needed the booze. I know exactly what that's like. It's like, the whole, it's the withdrawal. You need that booze to stop you from, being in sickness. And it's Jen and I are watching Dope Sick. I've seen it before, but it's a great dramatization of the Oxycontin epidemic in the US, and thank God it never got over here. I don't believe you can still get the drug. Maybe you can, and maybe it is a lot more controlled than what it was. But they were giving it out to people with headaches and toothache, and they were getting hooked on it straight away. So I will put that in the show notes as well, because it's fantastic. It's not a documentary, but it's a docudrama type thing. Well, it's not even a docudrama. It's just a dramatization with Michael Keaton and who else is in it? Oh, there's loads of people in it. But anyway, yeah, it's on Disney, and it's a great little look into. Great's probably the wrong word, but a good look into the epidemic that they had over there, and just how easily people can get hooked, all walks of life. So it is something to watch out for. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. As you can see, autumn's here. Autumn is here. The colours are orange. I mean, I do like orange, but yeah, the beanie hats are out, and the weather has taken a turn. So yeah, we won't be going out in the paddleboarding as much for the foreseeable, I'm sure. We might get a little. I mean, I don't know if you're allowed to say Indian summer, but yeah, I'm hoping for a little couple of days of beautiful sunshine soon. We are going to Morocco in, I think it's about 7 or 8 weeks now. So maybe by the time this comes out, it'll be even closer. We are going because Jen, my wife, is heavily steeped in the Manx dancing, as I'm sure I've said before. And in Marrakesh, I think it's every year or every 2 years, they have a huge, big global cultural dance and music festival for people from, all different countries around the world, and they all congregate in Marrakesh for what is just going to be an amazing, amazing festival. So I think we're going for about 10 days. We're going for that for about 5 or 6 days, and then we're staying on for another 3 days to kind of have a little bit of a honeymoon. But the kids will be with us, and Jen's sister Abby. But that's by the by. It's going to be an amazing little trip that we're doing. So we're going to hopefully stay in a Riyadh, which we're trying to book at the moment. And yeah, it's going to be a nice little bit of winter sunshine. What I'm really excited about is the fact that Morocco, Marrakesh is predominantly a Muslim country, so there's really not drinking there at all. So that'll be quite nice. And I know not everyone's going to go hell for leather, and I know you can drink there, but it won't be just like a big massive piss up. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to drinking some lovely teas and having a look around the bazaars, the markets and things like that. I don't know if they call them bazaars there, but I'm sure they probably do. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. That's the end of October. I'm going to do some episodes up until the end of season 2, which will be about episode 50. There'll be a bonus episode coming after that, which will be Jen interviewing me. So we need to organise that, which will be quite exciting because I've spoken on other podcasts, and I'm doing a few in the next couple of weeks. But on my own podcast, I've never really, apart from with my guests, spoken about my own recovery journey. Well, my addiction, active addiction, and then recovery journey. So that's going to be exciting. I'm sure exciting for you guys. But yeah, so hit the 5-star review, leave a comment, share it, do whatever you want, subscribe, and get the word out there, guys. So yeah, thanks again to Ryan, and hopefully I'll be on Ryan's podcast, Rock Bottom with Ryan, in a few weeks. So yeah, until then, love you guys, stay safe, stay sober, and stay supportive. Cheers, bye-bye.